Today on a special Chibiverse edition of the Danville Discussion.
Hello, Chibis! I'm Phineas and this is Ferb, and we can't wait to show you some of our favorite Chibi adventures. Plus, we'll be ending the show with a best friend disco dance-off. BFFs like Cricket and Remy, Molly and Scratch, Sprig and Ann, Penny and Dejanay, and of course, us.
Don't forget the funky Dr. D!
Oh, hi, Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Who will you be dancing with?
I am so glad you asked because it gives me the perfect transition to introduce the Best Friendinator! This device creates the perfect pal.
And welcome to the Danville Discussion, a podcast about all things related to Phineas and Ferb and beyond. My name is Caleb Dirksen, and some of you may know me from my YouTube channel of the same name, home of some web series related to animation such as Caleb Reviews. If this is your first time for the Danville Discussion, well, here's how it works. In this podcast, I watch and review each episode of Phineas and Ferb or Hamster and Gretel, and I go through all the cultural and in-universe references, songs, fun facts, and anything else I can find, and then I'm gonna end it all by giving the episode a roller coaster rating. But we're not going to be covering an episode of either of these shows this week. This time, we're going to review an episode of Chibiverse, a full-length series based on Chibi Tiny Tales, specifically episode 3, which is titled The Great Chibi Mixup, because for this podcast's sake, the episode features Phineas and Ferb characters as the hosts, alongside Luz Noceda from the Owl House. If you want to check out more episodes of the Danville Discussion, then go to anchor.fm/Caleb-Dirksen, and it'll take you directly to the Danville Discussion website on Anchor. You can also share your feedback or ask some questions you may have about this episode by emailing us at danvillediscussion@gmail.com with the series and episode title in the subject line. But first things first, I would like to share my thoughts as a whole on the first 2 episodes of Chibiverse. Those 2 episodes that I saw were Pizza vs. Fireworks and Bad Luck Chibis. And by the way, I actually watched both of these episodes on the official YouTube channel of Disney Channel, in case you're wondering. Now, each episode has a whole audience of Chibi versions of Disney Channel and Disney television animation characters, including from franchises such as Phineas and Ferb, DuckTales, specifically the 2017 reboot, Amphibia, Big City Greens, the Ghost and Molly McGee, the Owl House, Zombies, and more. And this show has some new additions, including Kim Possible, Gravity Falls, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, The Proud Family, Gargoyles, Wander Over Yonder, and Milo Murphy's Law. That's right, Wander Over Yonder and Milo Murphy's freaking Law. Let that sink in. And a select number of Chibi characters get to host the show in each episode. For Pizza vs. Fireworks, the hosts are Molly McGee and Scratch from the Ghost and Molly McGee, and Cricket and Tilly Green from Big City Greens. And Bad Luck Chibis is hosted by Cricket and Tilly Green once again, and also Ann Boone Choi and the Planter family from Amphibia, a family of frauds consisting of eldest brother Sprig, younger sister Polly, and their grandfather Hoppadiah, also known as Hot Pop. On top of that, they managed to add actual voice acting to the show instead of the mumbling noises that they would make in the Chibi Tiny Tales shorts, which I really liked the addition of, by the way. They brought back many of the voice actors behind these characters, including Brenda Song as Anne, Justin Feldbinger, Amanda Layton, and Bill Farmer as Sprig, Polly, and Hot Pop, respectively. And Bill Farmer is also famously known for voicing Goofy in various other Disney works. Also, Chris Houghton as Cricket, Maeve Harrington as Tilly, Ashley Birch as Molly, Dana Snyder as Scratch, and even Dan Povenmire as Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz. And I especially like that these Chibi characters from different shows get to interact with one another through their voices. movies. However, the one thing that some people were kinda disappointed by is that, aside from the segments where Chibis get into goofy shenanigans as hilarious hijinks ensue, the rest of the show is just a compilation of previous Chibi Tiny Tales shorts, with the only difference being that, with the exception of the As Told by Chibi versions of Disney movies, there's a title card in a random color bordered by silhouettes of various objects from Disney properties, and above the title there's a credit reading Chibiverse presents, and below we see what I would refer to as a gag tag. I don't know if that's what it's actually called, but I'll just call it a gag tag, where it shows a tagline for the short meant to contain some humor. And yeah, I do see in part where they're going with this. But honestly, despite the reruns of previous Chibi Tiny Tales shorts, I wouldn't say it's all that bad. It's a solid show personally. I would go and say that this is the House of Mouse of the 2020s, where you've got a group of Disney characters in the audience with some being the hosts, and they end up in all kinds of crazy situations, all while they present some cartoons of the previous work it's based on. For House of Mouse, the cartoons are based on the Mickey Mouse Works shorts, and for Chibiverse, it's Chibi Tiny Tales cartoons. So yeah, I'd say this is the closest we've ever gotten to a House of Mouse reboot. And the theme song is nice as well. The song itself does feel a bit like it would belong in Phineas and Ferb, but on another end, it also feels like something that would feel at home in Animaniacs.
Wait, are we sure this was a good idea?
If anything, it even reminds me of one of the theme songs of Hysteria, a Warner Brothers show which had the same people behind Animaniacs, and it does feel like something that would be done by the late Richard Stone or the Bernstein Stephen Julie.
It's hysterical, historical. Here's Nick, our baby, he's so horrible. With Father Time, Bob Kiddington. Misinformation, world's oldest woman. Mix toast and pepper with charity. And Froggo and the others get hilarity. Revolutionary, it's time for hysteria. Hysteria!
I know it may seem like I'm going off topic, but I have seen some episodes of Hysteria myself, and it's a pretty good show. It's like Animaniacs, but it focuses more on satirizing world history, featuring historical figures like George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Napoleon Bonaparte. Back onto Chibiverse, this is a good theme song, and those are my general thoughts on the first two episodes of Chibiverse. It may not be perfect due to the usage of previous Chibi Tiny Tales shorts, but it is still a nice solid show. Now finally, let's get started with the Great Chibi Mix-Up, and this episode aired on Disney Channel on Saturday, October 8th, 2022, and was released on YouTube that same day. Now, the episode begins with Phineas and Ferb introducing themselves and announcing some of their favorite Chibi adventures, and that they'll be ending the show with a best friend disco dance-off with Chibi BFFs like Cricket Green and Remy Remington from Big City Greens, Molly McGee and Scratch from the Ghost and Molly McGee, Anne Boonchoy and Sprig Planter from Amphibia, Penny Proud and Dejanay Jones from the Proud Family and its reboot Louder and Prouder, and even themselves. Among the other Chibis in the audience include Tilly Green and Andromeda, also from Big City Greens, the DuckTales gang with Huey, Dewey, and Louie Duck, Webby Vanderquack, Lena Saberwing, Launchpad McQuack, and Gizmo Duck. There's also Ron Stoppable and Rufus from Kim Possible, and characters from the Disney Channel original movie franchises of Zombies and Descendants, plus Star Butterfly and Marco Diaz from Star vs. the Forces of Evil, and for the first time ever, Milo Murphy and Zach Underwood from Milo Murphy's Law. The OG came first in Pizza vs. Fireworks. For the voice acting that I was talking about earlier, they brought back Vincent Martella as Phineas, and that's a big win for me. Then Dr. Doofenshmirtz comes in, brought to life again by Dan Povenmire, and Phineas greets him and asks who he'll be dancing with, which then gives Dr. Doof the chance to reveal his new invention, the Best Friendinator, a device that creates the perfect pal. When Doof launches the ray, it bounces onto the disco ball and then onto all the other Chibis. Phineas asks if everyone is alright, and Remy believes they're all okay, but then he picks Scratch the Ghost to be his best friend instead of Cricket, while Molly picks Sprig as her bestie when she should be with Scratch and Sprig should be with Anne, and Cricket picks Webby when he should be with Remy and Webby should be with the other DuckTales characters. And then I laughed my face off when Phineas and Ferb became shocked at this and they dropped their jaws on the floor, while Doofenshmirtz was just ticked off that this happened because they've got the wrong besties. So then while Phineas and Ferb try to figure out the problem, the former reminds the audience to watch some Owl House Chibi shorts, the first one being Lumity Date Night, which was originally released on September 10th, 2022 as part of Chibi Tiny Tales. The short follows Luz and Amity going out on a date while trying to avoid their date getting ruined by noise or obstacles. For Chibiverse, the title card has a purple background and the gag tag reads, "Need to cool off? Try this fan service." And it's kinda ironic because I know many Owl House fans that ship Luz with Amity. Series creator Dana Terrace really wanted to include LGBT representation in the show, and so by the end of season 1, Luz finally develops a crush on Amity, and that's when Luz becomes bisexual. And by the way, I'm not gonna waste my time talking entirely about the Chibi Tiny Tales shorts themselves, except for some based on the Dwampyverse shows if they show up, but I will save my thoughts on the other shorts for the very end. Other than that, I'm just going to talk about what happens throughout the main segments of this episode. But anyways, the second short after that is Hootie the Palisman Sitter, which originally premiered in Chibi Tiny Tales on September 3rd, 2022. This one has Hootie trying to keep the Owl House and the Palisman in order while Luz, Gus, and Willow are out. In the case of Chibiverse, it has a different title card in a brownish orange with the gag tag reading, "Bless this mess." No, wait, curse this mess. And this is telling me that some chaos is going to ensue during Hootie's Palisman sitting period. This then takes us into Act 2, where a film strip-like receipt is printed out of the Best Friendinator, and Phineas takes it, realizing that the problem was that the ray was programmed to turn Chibis into best friends, rather than create best friends directly from scratch, and this randomized all the besties with other Chibis and caused everyone to be mixed up about who their real bestie is. Among the audience, we see Candace paired up with Tilly, Remy paired up with Scratch, Molly paired up with Sprig, Milo paired up with Gizmo Duck, Hop Pop paired up with Dejanay, Zach paired up with Rufus, Huey and Louie teamed up with Andromeda, Penny paired up with Launchpad, Cricket paired up with Webby, Mal from Descendants paired up with Polly, and Ron paired up with Bree from Zombies. And when Doofenshmirtz says, "Oops, maybe I shouldn't have skipped on the coding," he makes some cute and funny faces. First, he has white dots with black outlines for his eyes and an oval for his mouth. Then he makes a sheepish grin with his eyes closed and his teeth locked together as he's speaking. Phineas says that they need to help the Chibis remember their best friends, or else the dance-off could turn into a disco of lies. He asks Doof if the brothers could use his ray to zap Chibis back with their real besties, but then the Best Friendinator explodes right in their faces, which results in Dr. Doof believing that's a no, and saying that he shouldn't have skimped on the wiring. And then Phineas gets an idea that maybe they should just jog everyone's memory, and he runs to the front of the stage, picks up a microphone, and announces to the Chibi audience that he and the other hosts are going to try to prevent any more of their confusion by watching some of their past adventures, all to show them who their real best friends are.
Wait, maybe we just need to jog everyone's memory. Chibis, since you're all confused, let's watch some of your past adventures to show you who your real best friends are.
Leading to the Amphibia short Quit Bugging Me, which originally premiered in Chibi Tiny Tales on June 14th, 2020, and it was actually the second Chibi Tiny Tales short ever released, because before that, they had the first Amphibia Chibi short and the first Chibi Tiny Tales short overall, Mantis Bowling, on June 7th of that year. Quit Bugging Me has Hot Pop focusing on his life, but a fly disturbs him and Sprig makes it even worse by trying to catch the fly, accidentally undermining Hot Pop. The Chibiverse title card for the short is in green, and the title is in a light blue-yellow gradient, and the gag tag reads, foreshadow much? Because by the end, Sprig latches his tongue onto the red moon and pulls it toward the ground, hitting him and Hot Pop, and in the actual series of Amphibia, the moon heading toward Amphibia in this short would later foreshadow Leaf's vision in the episode The Core and the King, the end of All In, and the main conflict in the series finale, The Hardest Thing. This short is followed by a Big City Greens short called Christmas Crashers, originally released on November 29th, 2020. It finds Cricket and Grandma pranking Santa Claus, but it backfires, and they must deliver presents across the world on Christmas. The Chibiverse title card for this one is all in green, with their title in a red and green gradient, and the gag tag reads, Santa gets a night off, against his will. Then there's a short of the Ghost and Molly McGee called Scratch Haunts the Chibiverse, released on October 3rd, 2021 in Chibi Tiny Tales, just 2 days after the Ghost and Molly McGee premiered. In this short, Scratch, Molly's ghost friend, goes out haunting other Disney animated series such as Amphibia, Phineas and Ferb, The Owl House, the DuckTales reboot, and Big City Greens, all to keep his approval of spreading misery as judged by the chairman. The Chibiverse title card is in purple with a green and blue gradient, and the gag tag is Scaring 9 to 5, what a way to make an afterliving. That tagline was funny to me, and I've discovered that it's a reference to the song 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton, which was made for the 1980 film of the same name by Colin Higgins and 20th Century Fox. Going into Act 3, Phineas reminds Molly that her actual best friend is Scratch from watching that Ghost and Molly McGee short, but Molly is still confused and she says that the show should be called The Frog and Molly McGee instead of The Ghost and Molly McGee. And this moment I consider one of my favorite parts of this episode, especially because she has a poster for the show with Sprig in place of Scratch, and instead of Friends Supernaturally, the tagline reads Friends Frog Naturally.
So see, Molly, you're actually best friends with Scratch.
The Ghost and Molly McGee? What kind of duo is that? Now the Frog and Molly McGee, that's a show.
At that moment, Phineas is surprised that it didn't work and worries that without the best friendinator Ray, he doesn't know how to solve the problem. But then Luz Noceda from the Owl House shows up as an additional host, complete with her voice actress Sarah Nicole Robles. She states that she was flying overhead on Owlbert the Owl Palisman and saw everything happen, and that they might be dealing with a classic best friend mix-up situation.
Maybe I can help.
Luz!
I was flying overhead and saw everything happen. I'm guessing we're dealing with a classic best friend mix-up situation. It happens.
Luz believes that if she draws the right combination of glyph magic, she might be able to bring everyone's chibi best friends back together. One of the glyphs is in green with 2 circles and a stick figure with a dot in its head, and Dr. Doof thinks that it looks just like him, and he draws another eyeball next to that one head, and a pointy nose, and the rest of his head, but Luz tries to stop this, saying that it'll mess up the magic, and yet she lands on that exact glyph, causing magic to happen. While Doof and Luz cover their eyes, Phineas and Ferb's eyes are spiraling, where Phineas's eyes are spiraling in purple and Ferb's eyes are spiraling in blue. Phineas wonders if the spell worked, and what do you know, Molly remembers Scratch as her BFF, and Remy believes that everything is back to normal and says that he has Gizmo Duck's wheels for feet. And then he freaks out about it. That's another favorite moment of mine.
Then I guess everything is back to normal, which is why I have Gizmo Duck's wheel for feet. Wait, what? I have Gizmo Duck's wheel for feet!
Well, so much for that spell because the mix-up is still there, only this time the Chibis' bodies are swapped. Molly now has Scratch's ghost body, and Penny and Deschanel are shocked at this. Even Scratch has Molly's legs. Sprig can't reach a fly anymore because now Anne has Sprig's stretchy tongue, and when Anne swallows the fly, she gets nauseated with blue spirals on her eyes, and Hamster and Gretel show up in the Chibiverse for the first time as well, but their heads are swapped, with Hamster's head on Gretel's body and Gretel's head on Hamster's body. Next, Polly has tentacles, Ron's head is on Rufus's body, Hop Pop has Polly's arms, legs, and tail, and Cricket has one of the DuckTales kids' bills. Cricket laughs and says, "Look at those freaks," but then he realizes he's a freak too now that he has a duck bill, and he even lays an egg, and I love that part.
Look at those freaks. Wait a second. I'm a freak too!
Then Doof asks Luz if her spell was supposed to do that, but Luz facepalms because now she's mad at him for messing it up, and then it goes into the Chibi music video for Descendants 3 for the song Queen of Mean, and the Chibi version was released on July 18th, 2021. And just to let you know, I have not seen Descendants 3. In terms of Descendants, I've only really watched the first one back in 2015, and that's all I really remember. This isn't even counting the Wicked World series. The short follows the movie's former supporting character turned villain, Princess Audrey, the daughter of Aurora and Philip from Sleeping Beauty, doing some villainous deeds throughout the Chibiverse while the song is playing. There's even a cameo of the stage from Broken Karaoke, that Disney short form show where Disney animated characters do random karaoke versions of various songs. I may be breaking a few rules here by giving my thoughts right now, but I thought this was okay, but because I haven't really watched Descendants 3 yet, I don't get the context of how Audrey became an antagonist later on. Next are the Halloweentown shorts, the first one being Halloweentown as told by Chibi, which originally came out on October 4th of 2020. It's basically an adaptation of the original Halloweentown movie, but in Chibi form. The original film premiered on Disney Channel on October 17th, 1998. The second Halloweentown short is Halloweentown Haircut, originally premiered on October 11th, 2020, in which Marnie Piper wants to use magic to cut her hair, but her grandmother Agatha Aggie Cromwell has other ideas that Marnie reluctantly tries to go through. The Chibiverse title card for this is in purple with green text, and the title in an orange gradient with a greenish-yellow border. The silhouettes are a little redder and whiter, and the gag tag reads, "As if haircuts weren't scary enough." This short transitions to Act 4, where the entire Chibiverse is in chaos and disarray because of the Chibis' bodies getting mixed up, and Luz says that her spell was supposed to bring the Chibis together, but when Dr. Doof changed her glyphs, it literally combined them, and Phineas is still struggling to come up with an idea of how to fix it all. Just then, Perry the Platypus as Agent P comes in still trying to keep his identity a secret, and hands Phineas a card saying they should watch the Hamster and Gretel Chibi adventures. Yet Phineas calls him a stranger, unaware that the brother's pet platypus is a secret agent, and on one hand this may seem confusing, but on the other I couldn't help but find it hilarious.
That stranger handed me a card saying we should watch Hamster and Gretel Chibi Adventures.
I know I've already talked about these shorts in the previous bonus episode of the Danville Discussion, so if you want to know my full thoughts and the full plot summary of those shorts, you can go back to that, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, I'll leave a card on the upper right corner of the video. So I'm just going to give you the differences between the title cards and my brief thoughts on the shorts for this one. But the first Hamster and Gretel short they show is Museum Mayhem, but its Chibiverse title is now Fight at the Museum, which sounds like a parody of the Night at the Museum films. This previously came out not too long ago. It was out on October 1st of 2022, a week before this episode aired, and it follows Gretel, Hamster, and Kevin on a walk through the museum until Hamster and Gretel become superheroes and stop Professor Exclamation from stealing a dinosaur. diamond, which causes a bunch of chaos throughout the place. I've already mentioned that the new title is Fight at the Museum, but for the rest of the Chibiverse title card, the background is brown, the text is in a yellow-orange gradient with a red border, and the gag tag says, "It's canon in the Chibiverse that Kevin has ornithosolidophobia, which is a fear of dinosaurs." This is referring to the fact that Kevin gets scared by the T-Rex skeleton. If I could just give my brief thoughts, this would have to be my personal favorite of the 3 Chibi shorts we've gotten of Hamster and Gretel. It has some cute moments. I love the Milo Murphy's Law cameos, whether it be the Venus de Milo Murphy or that painting of Diogenes playing cards. There was an Aladdin reference with the magic lamp, the fight moments were fun, and the Chibi animation was very creative. I like it a lot. I know I gave all 3 shorts 8.5 out of 10 roller coasters, but the thing is, one's favorite doesn't always equal the best. Like, for example, both Fantasia and Zootopia, which are Disney animated features, are tied for my favorite animated film ever, but I've seen plenty other animated movies that I would say are as good as those 2, like the Toy Story films, the 1940 Pinocchio, Inside Out, Soul, the 1994 Lion King, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, even Beauty and the Beast. Well, the next Hamster and Gretel short is Ice Cream Rewind. And by the way, I'm sorry if I thought it was called Ice Cream Mayhem. The correct title is Ice Cream Rewind. This short was released on September 24th, 2022, and in this one, Hamster and Gretel get some ice cream, but Professor Exclamation ruins it, and they stop him using their superpowers and the video player controls. The title card for Chibiverse is in blue, and the title is in a light yellow-purple gradient, and the gag tag reads out, "Ruining ice cream should give anyone pause." For my brief thoughts, this is another really good short with the way that they operate the video player and how they use it to foil Professor Exclamation. It was also very expressive and creative in terms of the Chibi art style, and it has some solid moments throughout. I also like the VHS effect when Hamster and Gretel pause at the moment when the professor is about to zap them before he gets zapped himself. It's very nice. Moving to Act 5, Phineas tells Ferb that he now knows why that quote-unquote stranger wanted them to watch those Hamster and Gretel shorts, and Remy replies that Hamster and Gretel rewinded time to fix the problem. And in that shot right there, we see that Tilly's head is on Demona's body. That's Demona from Gargoyles, and the reason Cricket has a duckbill now is because his mouth was swapped with Webby's bill, so Webby has Cricket's mouth. I chuckle when Doofenshmirtz responded to Remy, "You've totally lost me."
Now I know why that stranger wanted us to watch those.
They rewinded time to fix a problem!
You've totally lost me.
Luz reluctantly says that they need a rewindinator, and Doof gets an idea, and Phineas warns the two not to skimp this time. Dr. D is annoyed, saying, "You turn everyone into freaks one time and suddenly there's trust issues." And his expression right there was funny. We then go to Zombies 1, 2, and 3 as told by Chibi, originally aired on August 12th, 2022, the same day that Hamster and Gretel premiered, along with the broadcast premiere of Zombies 3. And this is basically a retelling of the whole Zombies trilogy, with Matt Cornett singing as the narrator. The song is a parody of Fired Up from the first film. Now, I have not seen the Zombies films in their entirety. I've only seen the last bit of Zombies 3 before I watched the Hamster and Gretel premiere, but I thought this was an okay introduction to the movies as it retells all 3 films through the Chibi style. The song parody had some funny bits, such as how they're moving to the next film, and the end where Eliza turns out to be a robot.
That was a mouthful. Did I miss anything? Oh yeah, Eliza's a robot.
After that's done, Phineas and the rest of the hosts have gathered all the parts and are ready to build a rewindinator. Anne puts the screws on her Sprig tongue and sticks them onto a piece of wood. Cricket uses Webby's bill to push the screws, or nails, into place. Remy rolls the wheel on Gizmo Duck's wheel. Molly floats up and hangs a disco ball. Tilly flies up with Demona's wings and is holding a ray. And Phineas and Ferb put some film reels on the machine. Then Phineas declares it complete. The boys switch the inator on while Dejanay is aiming toward the disco ball and the ray bounces off the ball, reversing everything back to normal. Once finished, Sprig can finally stretch his tongue to catch the fly and everything is as it should be. Phineas and Ferb high-five each other, and Cricket says that he has so much respect for ducks now, and a duck that looks like Cricket hatches out of the egg saying his catchphrase, bingo bango, and I laughed at that.
We did it, Ferb! Everyone's back to normal.
Yeah, I have so much respect for ducks now. Bingo, bingo!
We then cut to another Ghost and Molly McGee short called Scratch's Candy Craze, which came out on October 17th, 2021 as Scratch's Sugar Rush. It has Scratch eating too much candy when he and Molly go trick-or-treating, and it also contains a costume cameo. Molly is dressed in Mickey's sorcerer outfit from the Sorcerer's Apprentice segment of Fantasia. The title card in Chibiverse is in purple with the title in blue and purple, and it has this hilarious gag tag. It reads, "Warning, do not try eating the entire planet at home, kids." And finally, the last Chibi short they show is a Phineas and Ferb short titled Doofenshmirtz, released on August 30th, 2020, 2 days after the Candace Against the Universe movie was out on Disney+. In this short, Dr. Doofenshmirtz's air conditioner has a short circuit, and funny enough, it has a face on it. Doof tries to get it working again by pounding it, but it's still not effective, and the air conditioner dies, with black crosses on the eyes and a tongue sticking out of the vent. Doof looks outside at the sun, and the sun puts on sunglasses and shines its rays onto Dr. Doof with extra heat, and the doctor covers his eyes when this happens. Then we cut to this short's Chibiverse title card, which is in indigo. The title is also in indigo with a frosty gradient, and the gag tag reads out, "A cautionary tale about keeping your AC unit properly maintained." And I gotta thank this gag tag for giving me advice. Afterwards, Doofenshmirtz has finally invented the Freezinator, a floating aircraft with a ray designed to freeze anything. And so he uses it to freeze the air conditioner and sits on the frozen appliance to cool himself down. However, the sun comes close to him and melts the ice, which causes him to freeze the sun. But Agent P comes in and jumps on the Freezinator with his grappling hook on yet another mission to stop Dr. Doof. The doctor furiously shakes Perry off the vehicle, but Perry lands safely as they go into another duel where Agent P avoids getting frozen. Dr. D creates an ice rink, and Perry manages to keep himself from slipping and falling. Then Doof flies off with the Freezinator. Meanwhile, Phineas and Ferb are in the backyard building a rocket just like they did in Out to Launch, but then the Perry and Doofenshmirtz duel intersects with this scenario. Perry is running while Doof freezes the brothers' tree, which has a face, and Candace pulls her mother Linda outside to see what her brothers are doing, with a shocking red speech bubble containing exclamation points over her head, but Linda is too busy reading a book. Perry runs past Linda, causing her to look at the rocket, but just as Candace is finally about to bust the boys, Linda is frozen by the Freezinator, and Candace gets frozen after. Throughout Danville, the escape continues with Dr. D freezing the bench, the sign, and the mailbox at the bus stop, and freezing entire buildings too, including Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated. Back at the Flynn Fletcher backyard, Perry latches onto the rocket to check Phineas and Ferb from behind, and he lights up the rocket, sending it up with a countdown by a robotic voice, and the boys are surprised by this, while instead of going into space, the rocket goes toward the sun, breaking the ice off and setting the sun free. Then Dr. Doofenshmirtz goes to the sun, which gets mad at him with a reveal from its sunglasses, and Doof shrieks in terror with shocked chibi eyes and tears coming out of them, which was kind of funny when I looked at that, and he flees from the sun as it shoots its rays toward him, creating fire on the ground and melting the icebox off the bench, the bus sign, the mailbox, Linda, Candace, and the tree, and Candace becomes shocked when she sees that the rocket isn't there anymore, and it was very cool that they even used some dotted lines for objects that aren't there. Linda looks at Candace thinking she's confused once again, and when Candace gasps, she has the shocked look with sharp teeth. The sun melts the ice off the buildings as well, and Dr. Doof manages to make it back into his lair, hiding in front of the air conditioner, but the sun comes back up close to him behind the window, and Perry drops in with his grappling hook and offers Doof an ice cream, causing the latter to tear up with puppy dog eyes, then a circle out, and that's the end of this short. It is a really good short, I gotta say, with some good chibi animation and great humor. To end this episode, Phineas and Ferb finally begin the Chibi Real Best Friend Disco Dance-Off, and as the Chibis are dancing, on the left they've got Launchpad, Milo, Zach, and Addison Wells and Bree from Zombies, and on the right there's Lena, Webby, Star, and Marco. The dancers so far are Phineas and Ferb, Molly and Scratch, Ann and Sprig, and Cricket and Remy. Doofenshmirtz, teary-eyed, is offered to dance by Agent P, and his shocked expression has a shadow under his hair and red wedges over his head, all before he accepts Perry as his friend for the disco dance, and Agent P reveals a disco outfit by removing his teal fur. Doof replies, "I guess I had a disco friend this whole time," while blushing. Then his face turns angry when he says, "Once that constantly thwarts my evil plans," and then back to sweetness when he finishes, "But beggars can't be choosers. Let's get funky."
Perry the Platypus, you'll be my friend for the disco dance? I guess I had a best friend this whole time. One that constantly thwarts my evil plans, but beggars can't be choosers. Let's get funky.
And then they begin to dance, but Phineas wonders if that stranger turned out to be Perry, but doubts it because that platypus is wearing a hat, and on that note, that's the end of this episode.
Wait, is that Perry? Nah, couldn't be. That platypus is wearing a hat.
Now, with the rest of my thoughts, I'm going to talk about my basic thoughts on the other Chibi shorts themselves. Of course, I really like the Chibi animation. It often looks pretty cute, especially with Marnie in the Halloweentown shorts. The expressions are very wild, and the effects and the speech bubbles with symbols or scenery were creative. For the acting of the characters, I noticed how around the end of 2020, back when Chibi Tiny Tales was fairly new, that they went from using sound clips of the original voice actors to basic cartoon sound effects from libraries like MGM, Hanna-Barbera, and Looney Tunes, with shorts like the ones of the Owl House, that Big City Green's Christmas short, the Ghost and Molly McGee shorts, the Descendants 3 music video, the Halloweentown shorts, the Hamster and Gretel shorts, and the Zombies trilogy retelling. And yeah, these sound effects are pretty generic in these shorts, but they're also kind of funny at times. And now that I gave out my opinions on the Dwompiverse shorts, I'm going to give out my final thoughts regarding the other shorts. Many of them are very good, like the Owl House shorts, the Amphibia short, the Ghost and Molly McGee shorts, the Hamster and Gretel shorts, the Phineas and Ferb short, and the Halloweentown shorts. Plus, I can't get over how cute the second short was at times with Halloweentown haircut, and I even grew up with the Halloweentown films as a kid, watching them on Family Channel during their Disney days. The Big City Green short was pretty solid, and because I haven't gotten around fully watching Descendants 3 and the Zombies films, the Chibi shorts they showed that were based on those two were just okay. But now with those out of the way, let's talk about the main segments, which are the plot of this episode. As good as most of the Chibi Tiny Tales shorts were, these were easily the best part of the episode for me personally. Seriously, I loved all the humor throughout, and Dr. Doofenshmirtz and Luz really stole the show for me with their arguments over the spells. The addition of Hamster and Gretel and more Milo Murphy's Law characters with Milo and Zach especially adds to how much fun I had with this. This may not be a sign that Milo is going to return officially, since it hasn't had any new episodes in 3 years, but this is something that I am thankful for. There's also Star and Marco, which I will say I do like the idea of turning Star versus the Forces of Evil characters into Chibis, but even then, I dropped out of the show a long while ago because of the train wreck that happened in its final season, and maybe even season 3. But some of the Chibi shorts shorts did a very good job as plot devices for this episode. Like that first Ghost and Molly McGee short, they used it to help Molly regain her memory of who her real best friend is, that being Scratch. And one of the Hamster and Gretel shorts, Ice Cream Rewind, that helped Phineas, Ferb, Doofenshmirtz, and Luz get the idea to build the Rewindinator to reverse the problem. So in all, this was a very good Chibiverse episode, and definitely my favorite and the best one of the show in my opinion. Excellent chibi animation, some enjoyable chibi shorts, plenty of top-notch humor, and a well-written crossover story. It's just amazing. And now, ending things off, let's go over to our roller coaster rating. So how many roller coasters on a scale of 1 to 10 would I give this entire episode of Chibiverse? I think this is going to be a 9.5 out of 10. I love the main story where the Phineas and Ferb and Owl House characters have to work together to prevent the mix-ups, and a lot of the humor was really great, especially that bit of meta humor with the Frog and Molly McGee joke, and most of the Chibi Tiny Tales shorts serve a good purpose to the story, like Hamster and Gretel's Ice Cream Rewind and the Ghost and Molly McGee Scratch Haunts the Chibiverse. And the chibi animation was very good too, with the variety of expressions and how cute some of them look too. Plus, I like the addition of Milo and Zach. It feels like a giant win. Overall, my favorite episode of Chibiverse right now. Now it's the end of the month, and you know what that means? More Hamster and Gretel updates! And for how I said that the show would be on a month-long hiatus after episode 10 until November, well, that seems to be true. I'm going to be going over the titles and synopsis for the episodes that are going to be airing in November. Also, before I go further, I also want to mention that Disney XD has begun airing new premieres of the show with previous episodes, because in August they only aired the pilot episode after its Disney Channel premiere, and right now they're doing a second run of the previous episodes back to back. Plus, as I'm recording this, episodes 6 to 10 of Hamster and Gretel are now streaming on Disney Plus in the US. They were just added on Wednesday, October 26th. So if you're in the States and you have Disney Plus, go check them out. Hamster and Gretel has been very good so far from what I saw, and I'm willing to check out more of it. But without any further ado, I'm reading this on Twitter from the Disney Beat, and so on Saturday, November 12th, Disney Channel will premiere Grounded. Gretel is grounded as a meat monster strikes. Sleepover with the enemy. Gretel is suspicious of a new student in class. And ironically, looking at the title, this will be the third episode of the Dwompiverse show to have the enemy in its title, because before that there was Sipping with the Enemy from Phineas and Ferb and Rooting for the Enemy from Milo Murphy's Law. On Saturday, November 19th, we have Friday Night Fight. Hiromi and Fred encounter robots at the school. The Earworm, a new breakfast cereal TV jingle hypnotizes people. Then finally, on Saturday, November 26th, we got A Mammoth Problem. Gretel's science project goes wrong. The Bantam of the Elementary School Light Opera. Strange things start to happen when the elementary school rehearses for a play. And obviously, the title sounds a lot like the Phantom of the Opera, but with a twist. If you're in the US, then like always, these new episodes will air every Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern on Disney Channel, and then sometime later they will have their second run on Disney XD every Monday back-to-back at 8 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you watch the show, I'd suggest setting your DVR on that so that you can watch them at any time. And that's all I've got for this week, so thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Danville Discussion. As for me, you can find me on my Facebook page at Real Caleb Dirksen, on my Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok pages at Caleb Dirksen2 with the number 2, on my alternate Twitter page at Caleb the PNF Guy, on my Instagram pages at Caleb.Dirksen for my main page, or at Caleb Flynn Fletcher for my alternate page, and on my DeviantArt page at Caleb Dirksen20. You can also find me on Discord by typing the username Caleb Dirksen, it's a 2-word username, and then the code number 4600. And if you go to the invite link in the description below, it'll also invite you to my Discord server so that you can talk with me about anything, including this podcast or my other content. You can also find me on YouTube. All you have to do is just search for Caleb Dirksen and look for the icon of me as a soldier. And if you want to support my work and get some great rewards all at once, including getting access to my content before anyone else, like my videos, my podcast episodes, or whatever, then you can become a patron on patreon.com/Caleb Dirksen. I greatly appreciate your support over there. As for this podcast, we are available to listen on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and you can also find us on Anchor by using your Apple or Android device or going on the web at anchor.fm/Caleb-Dirksen, and then it'll take you directly to the Danville Discussion page. If you listen to this show on Apple Podcast or any other podcast browser, then do you want to just rate and review this podcast? That would be much appreciated as long as you're not trying to be a cyberbully. And if you were listening to this podcast as a video on YouTube, then please touch that like button on our video and leave us a little comment with your thoughts on this Chibiverse episode. You can also share your feedback or ask some questions by sending us an email at danvillediscussion@gmail.com with the series and episode title in the subject line. Join us next time, and I'm finally gonna go back to my normal episode discussions, beginning with episode 5 of Phineas and Ferb with Raging Bully and Lights Candace action. Tune in next time for the latest episode of the Danville Discussion and all things related to Phineas and Ferb and beyond. And with that said, thank you all for listening to this. Have a happy Halloween, and until next time, this is Caleb, over and out. This podcast was created strictly and only for entertainment and information purposes. It is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company, Disney Television Animation, or their affiliates. All and any names, images, clips, sounds, or other items related to Phineas and Ferb, Milo Murphy's Law, Hamster and Gretel, and other Disney properties are trademarks and or copyrights of their respective holders. All original content from this podcast is the intellectual property of the Danville Discussion and the host or hosts running the podcast unless otherwise noted.